Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Hare. Hearty welcome to you, Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Jayata. I was just thinking in my mind, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, in the very beginning chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, Thakura's tone and assurance was so positive and assuring regarding the results one would get by hearing Bhagavata Katha. There, Chakravarti Pada says, when somebody hears Bhagavata Katha, even if they are not interested, even if they don't have faith, somehow, if the Bhagavata Katha goes in the ear, then Lord Krishna will get into the heart and starts doing his job. And when I was reading that, it was so hopeful, so hopeful. And then there, Chakravarti Pada comments, so if somebody hears Bhagavata Katha, they are going to be delivered no matter what. It's just a matter of time. Even if they pay attention to it, if they have faith or not, interest or not, the fact that they are hearing means now Krishna has entered in the heart and he starts working. But for somebody who wants this to happen a little quicker, a little faster, then do this, do that, hear attentively, like that. He says like that. So that's what I was thinking. Because sometimes we may be able to pay attention and sometimes we may not be able to. And our faith may not be so strong initially. Then what's going to happen to us? There, Chakravarti Pada, he assures us, no problem, just keep it going, keep it going. So on that note, I thought I'll just share that. It was very encouraging. So today we will be doing the second canto. We will complete the second canto today. Second canto is a small one. So what we will do is quickly recap what we have done so far in the second canto, and then do the 8th, 9th, and 10th chapters today. So let's do that. Yeah, I think we can go ahead to now. So the recap after the Srimad Bhagavatam overview, introduction, and the whole summary in 1 hour, we did the first canto. Right? After the first canto, we came to the second canto. In the second canto, Srila Sukadeva Goswami, he explains about all the yogas quickly, about Devatarchana and Karma Kanda and Jnana Yoga, and more detail about the Ashtanga Yoga. After explaining all these yogas, Sukadeva Goswami says how Bhakti Yoga is superior, and then quotes Akama Sarva Kamova, Moksha Kama Udaradi, Tivrena Bhakti Yogin Yajita Purusham Param. That's how he establishes how Bhakti Yoga is supreme. And then he says, it's not just me. Even Brahmadeva, he scrutinized the Vedas 3 times, and his conclusion was also the same. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Yatho Bhavet. So in that way, Srila Sukadeva Goswami concludes that Bhakti Yoga is superior than the other process of the yoga. And after that, that's more or less the nutshell of the first, second, and third chapters. And then when Shaunaka Rishi says, okay, please go ahead. If you can say more about what Parikshit Maharaj asked and Sukadeva Goswami explained, then the further chapters go, as we have discussed in the last week. Parikshit Maharaj, after hearing the glories of Bhakti Yoga, then he starts meditating on Lord Krishna. By getting attached to the Lord internally, his detachment happens outside. Yeah? And after that, his question to Sukadeva Goswami was, would you please tell me about the material creation, the creation pastimes of the Lord? So to that question, Sukadeva Goswami says, okay, I shall go and explain that to you. But before that, let me do some invocation prayers. So he does the invocation prayers. And then in the 5th chapter, he starts explaining about the creation part. So there, the creation, it begins with the jivas coming from the Mahavishnu along with the karma, kala, and swabhava. These jivas, we call that the whole thing as Shambhu, right? And Shambhu interacts with Pradhan, then Mahatattva forms. So from Mahatattva comes the Ahankara. And from Ahankara comes Sattva, Raja, Tamo gunas, right? From Sattva guna or mode of goodness comes mind and sense devatas. From Rajoguna comes intelligence, prana, okay, and jnanendriyas. And from Tamoguna comes the Panchabhutas and Tanmatras. And after this, so by this time, all the ingredients are ready. The 23 ingredients are ready. What are those 23? The Mahatattva, the false ego, yeah, the 10 Panchabhutas, the 5 Panchabhutas, and 5 Tanmatras, okay, and then 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas, and then the mind. So total 23. These 23 ingredients are ready. Until here, this is called Karana Srishti. Okay, until all these ingredients are ready. After that is Karya Srishti. What is that? Now that these 23 material ingredients are ready, they're all scattered in the Brahmanda. Okay, by the energy, Maya Shakti of the Lord, all the scattered elements, they come together. Okay? They come together in cohesion by the cohesive energy of the Lord. And that stays in the Brahmanda about 1,000 years with no activity. Nothing goes on in the Brahmanda without any activity for about 1,000 years. Yeah. After that period of time, Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu enters into this Brahmanda to create some activity here. And when he enters into Brahmanda, comes the Virat Rupa. So that Virat Rupa is because of the entry of Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu into Brahmanda. Yeah. So this part, until the start of this 23 material ingredients, till the formation or appearance of the Virat Rupa, is called Karya Srishti. Okay. That's what we have discussed. So that was discussed in the 5th chapter and a little bit in the 6th chapter. And after that, Brahma says, so all that ingredients, that is how the creation begins. And then he says how he appeared from the lotus, the Nabi, from the navel of the Lord. But before that, he says how this creation has happened, the Karana Srishti and Karya Srishti. And then he goes, whatever I say, they will not go wrong. My words will not go wrong. My deeds will not go wrong. And my senses also, they don't go in a wrong path, because I hold the lotus feet of Lord Hari very tightly in my heart. Yanme Hridaya Outkanta. With all earnestness, I hold the lotus feet of Lord Hari in my heart. That's why I do not go wrong. And then he glorifies the Lord after that. And the very last chapter, as we discussed, that was 7th chapter. There he describes about the Leela avatars. After this Karna Srishti, Karya Srishti, and then glorification of the Lord, he describes the Leela avatars and says, what can I say? I am so small in describing, in glorifying the Lord. Even the Ananta Sesha, he has thousands of head. Even with those thousands of tongues, he is unable to glorify. I am too small to glorify the Lord. He says that. And then he also says how Lord can be understood only by unpretentious surrender. There in that context, we discussed about how Sharanagati, unpretentious surrender is Sharanagati. Since the Lord is not directly present before us, then Sharanagati to Sri Guru, how that will lead us, in the words of Brahma, how unpretentious surrender leads to the flow of mercy from the Lord, thus cessation of the miseries. This is how the material miseries are vanished. This is what Lord Brahma says. How unpretentious surrender would lead to cessation of misery by attracting the mercy of the Lord. He says that. And then after that, he explains a little bit about Jnana Yoga, where the Adhyatma Vastu is just realized only as consciousness. And if somebody goes a little deeper, then they would know this. There is a person behind this consciousness, which is Paramatma. Okay, that is Ashtanga Yoga. And if somebody goes even more a little deeper and has a desire to reciprocate with Paramatma, the same Adhyatma Vastu, Paramatma, will become Bhagavan. When Paramatma starts reciprocating, then he is Bhagavan. Paramatma is present only in the material world. Bhagavan is present in the spiritual realm. Bhagavan comes to the material realm as Paramatma, so he can accompany the jivas. But once the jiva has a desire to be in the part of the leelas with the Lord, then the address changes. It's not the material realm anymore. It's in the spiritual realm. So in that way, Brahma says how Bhakti Yoga is complete. More than the Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, how Bhakti Yoga is complete. And even to do Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, they also need Bhakti. But Shuddha Bhakti is more complete than the Jnana Mishra Bhakti or Yoga Mishra Bhakti. That was the conclusion. And he says, Narada, please glorify now. Please elaborate now. I have told you Bhagavatam in a nutshell. Now please elaborate. Please explain this to the people in a way it invokes bhakti in them. So that's how Brahma instructs Narada. That was the last session. So Parikshit Maharaj is hearing this, all this from Sukadeva Goswami. And Parikshit Maharaj says, Oh Guru Varya, Sukadeva Goswami, please go on. This is so wonderful, so wonderful. Yes. How did Narada Muni broadcast the glories of Vasudeva? Because Harikatha, I want to hear this Harikatha more and more, unceasingly. So much so that I want to be absorbed in the thoughts of Lord Hari, and I want to leave my body like that. So that's how the next chapter, the 8th chapter starts. Okay, so we'll go to the 8th chapter now. I'm going to bring the PowerPoint here. Okay. Yes, that's Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami. So yes, please go ahead. I want to hear this Harikatha more and more. Please narrate this Lord's auspicious, wonderful potencies so I can remember them at the time of death. So he acts like that. And then Parikshit Maharaj is saying this. He says, look, in the next 3 slokas, please see the faith of Parikshit Maharaj. He just asked Sukadeva Goswami to please recite, to please speak more about the glories of the Lord. I want to hear. And he goes, how does he want to hear? Shrinvata Shraddaya Nityam Granatascha Swacheshtitam Kalena Nati Dirghena Bhagavan Vashate Hridi. This is how he wants to hear. This is how we want to hear Bhagavatam also. Shrinvata, one who hears, Shraddaya, with such faith, Nityam, regularly, always, Granatascha, whatever was heard, Shrinvata what? Hearing about what? About Bhagavan, about the Lord in the heart. Yeah. So hearing about the Lord in the heart with such Shraddha. What kind of Shraddha is he talking about? He's talking about the faith that if I am hearing about this Vasudeva, about this Lord in the heart, just by my hearing, the Lord has such potency that he is going to take me from this Kunta to Vaikuntha, from this world of miseries to the spiritual realm, with that Druda Vishwasa, with such kind of faith. When somebody is hearing that, Granatascha, accept the message that Srimad Bhagavatam is giving about Bhagavan and contemplate on the message. Okay, hearing with such faith and rapt attention, and then contemplating on the message, on the Nama Rupa Guna Leela of the Lord, instructions of the Lord, so much so that Swacheshtitam, it comes out as practice of bhakti. So, if that hearing is like that, then the contemplation happens and then it comes out as sadhana bhakti. That's how, if one hears, then kalena na ati dirghena, na ati dirghena, not too long. It doesn't take too long for Bhagavan Vashate Hridi, in the heart for the Lord to be established. This is what Parikshit Maharaj is saying. So, yes, I want to hear, because if I hear like this, the Lord in my heart is very quickly established. Then we will be thinking, oh, this is so beautiful. But how can that happen to me? Is there a possibility for me? Is there a possibility for that to happen to me? Shrinvata we are doing, Shraddaya, how big is our faith? Since we are sadhakas in the beginning, our faith may not be so strong. But if we are getting the association of all the Shuddha Bhaktas whose faith is so deep, then gradually over a period of time, our faith also builds up. And as the purification is happening, the faith gets stronger. Especially when we hear from the Shuddha Bhaktas, when we read Srila Bhakti Vedanta purports, Srila Prabhupada purports, and hearing from the Acharyas, their faith gets rubbed off to us. Their taste gets rubbed off. So in that way, when we do the sadhana bhakti, then gradually, yes, we will be able to get there. Okay. So Parikshit Maharaj is saying, yes, please go ahead. And this is how I want to hear. Oh, by the way, just a footnote. Kalena nati dirghena. It doesn't take too long for the Lord to be established. That part we just have to be cautious from our end because we are sadhakas. When we are doing sadhana bhakti, we want to remember the instruction of Srila Rupa Goswami, Utsaha Nischaya Dhairya. We are doing sadhana bhakti, but it is important that we are patient with ourselves, kind to ourselves and kind to the people around too. And continue it regularly with determination. Utsaha Nishchaya Dhairya, and with enthusiasm. Yeah. So keeping these things in mind, having patience while we get there gradually to Shuddha Bhakti from Sadhana Bhakti, being kind to ourselves and to the people around, and continuing the Sadhana Bhakti with determination. So then we will be taken there. This is good. Shrinvata. This is how Shrinvata, hearing, can translate into the Cheshta Rupa Bhakti outside. And then Parikshit Maharaj says, what happens when we hear Bhagavata Katha? And this is why Parikshit Maharaj is so enthused to hear. No food, no sleep, 7 days. Why? We want to hear from the mouth of Parikshit Maharaj. Why is he emphasizing so much about hearing the Bhagavata Katha? He says, Pravishta Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dhunoti Shamalam Krishnaha Salilasya Yadha Sharat. Beautiful. This is why bhakti is very natural and very potent. Because when Bhagavata Katha is entering, any information about Bhagavan is entering, Pravishta Karnarandrena, ear holes, Pravishta, entering. When the Bhagavad Katha is entering into the ear holes, Swanam Bhava Saroruham. Here, Bhava Saroruham. Bhava, emotion. Saroruham, lotus flower. So the Krishna Katha that is entering into the ear holes touches the lotus flower of bhava or emotion in a person. And then what happens? Dhunoti shamalam Krishnaha. It washes off the dirt. How? Salilasya yadhasharat. In a way, where the autumn rain clears the muddy water. That's the comparison. If we understand this, this is why Bhakti Yoga is very potent. What happens when we hear about Bhagavan is, please see here, it is Bhava Saroruham, our Bhava for the Lord, our emotion for the Lord. The Krishna Katha enters and the lotus flower, which is compared to Bhava, is cleansed off. What it means is, we may be having emotions about the material things, about the people around, which is accompanied with Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. Right? So those are all also emotions, but they are contaminated. The emotions are meant for Bhagavan, right? So when Bhagavad Katha is entering into the ear holes, these contaminated emotions, they get cleansed by the Krishna Katha. So our object of emotions was or were the people and things around which were accompanied by Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. But when Krishna Katha enters, the object of our emotion becomes, Krishna becomes the object of our emotions. And instead of Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, as they get washed off, Preeti for the Krishna is generated. So that's the potency of Krishna Katha. When the Krishna Katha is entered, Lord Krishna is going to replace our contaminated object, and Krishna Katha is going to replace all that Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya with Krishna Preeti. That's why Bhava Saroruham. So Krishna Katha is going to invoke the Bhava for Krishna. By this means, all the dirt that was there in the emotions regarding this material world is washed off. This is why Krishna Katha is very potent. And we have to be really mindful and introspective. If we want to see that, as Parikshit Maharaj was saying, Kalena Nati Dirkena, Bhagavan Vishate Hridi, we want to be mindful to see if we are hearing Krishna Katha like that. So much so that everybody else, everything else of this world are being displaced by Krishna. And all these feelings are being displaced by Krishna Priti. So that's something to keep. Swanam Bhava Saroruham. This Bhava Saroruham is the Bhava, lotus feet, lotus flower of Bhava. Is washed off, is cleansed off by Krishna Katha. Okay? And because our Atma is being cleansed off, Dhautatma Purusha Krishna, Padamulam Namunchati. Now, this Krishna Katha is Praveshta Karnarandrena. First he said, please go ahead, Sukadev Goswami, Shrinvatam Shraddhaya Nityam. I want to hear. And then he said, Praveshta Karnarandrena. When I'm hearing, then Swanam Bhava Saroruham is happening. I'm getting cleansed. My emotions are being cleansed. So and all this is happening because of the Krishna Katha, because of Lord Krishna. So Padamulam na munchati. That's why I do not want to leave the lotus feet of Lord Hari. I do not want to leave the Krishna Katha. In the Krishna Katha, in the Krishna Nama, is there Rupa Guna Leela. So when we are hearing Krishna Katha, it means that Lord Krishna is there and the lotus feet is there. And that's why Parikshit Maharaj is saying, because this cleansing is happening and Mukta Sarva Pariklesha, all the kleshas, all the miseries, Mukta, we are getting liberated from all these miseries. Just by hearing the Krishna Katha and capturing the lotus feet of Lord Hari in the heart, Padamulam na munchati, we don't want to let this lotus feet of Lord Hari go because it is liberating us from the miseries. How? Panta swasharanam yadha. For a tired traveler who has traveled for a long time and is so tired and has just come home and is getting the care from his affectionate family members and is, getting the care and the shelter that he needs at home. In that way, we get the care and the shelter that we need and get liberated from all these miseries when we catch hold, take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Hari in the heart, as we hear the Krishna Katha, when it is entering into the Karnarandrena, and when we are hearing it with Shrinvatam Shraddhaya Nityam. This is what Parikshit Maharaj is saying about Bhagavata Katha, hearing about Bhagavata Katha, and holding tight to the lotus feet of Lord Hari in the heart. And after that, Parikshit Maharaj says, for us here, anything to go home, to take home. This is a wonderful journey that we are in also. We are in sadhana bhakti, but we are in the shelter of the pure devotees and going on with the journey under their instructions and with the Harinam that they give. So we are heading that way. We are being taken towards Shuddha Bhakti. So we are very grateful. Yeah. And now, Lord Parikshit Maharaj, after saying this, he has this list of questions now. He's asking about this first question, very interesting question. If Jiva is just spiritual, how come he attains this material body? That's the first question. And second question is, who are these expansion? Shirodak, Karmadak Sai Vishnu, Garbhodak Sai Vishnu, Ki, Shirodak Sai Vishnu, who is Hiranyagarbha? All these are Purusha Avtaras. So who are these Purusha Avtaras? We have already discussed about this. We already know, but again, this will be repetitions throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. These are the questions of Parikshit Maharaj, and they will be explained throughout the Bhagavatam too. And so many more questions, which will lead to the discussions of further cantos in Srimad Bhagavatam. All these questions on, can you please tell me about the Kalpa, Vikalpa, karmic reactions, and the universes, and what are different planetary systems in the universes, Those are 5th canto. Varnashrama Dharma, can you say something about it? That's about Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto. And these list of questions. Okay. All of these questions are addressed in the rest of the Bhagavatam. So for us, the immediate questions that were addressed are these 2 questions here. How did Jiva get a material body? That's one. And the Purusha avatars. We have been already discussing, right? Karanodakasai Vishnu, the universe has come. We have just discussed how Karanodakasai expands as Garbhodakasai Vishnu to enter into the material universe. We have just discussed that, right? So further discussion will go on about these 2 questions. So that will take us to the next chapter about answering the questions, first 2 questions. But before that, let's bring our attention here, something very important. Again, Parikshit Maharaj is saying, please answer these questions for me as I surrender unto you. This is important. All of us, we hear Bhagavatam, but with what mood are we hearing makes the difference. Am I hearing it for informational sake? Or am I hearing it with a mood, with total respect and attention to the Bhagavad Katha and the narration that is going on? And am I taking whatever is coming from the Katha as a message from those pure devotees in the Bhagavatam to me? Am I introspecting on that message? Am I trying to bring that message into the practice? This is the surrender. Parikshit Maharaj is saying, now that I'm surrendered to you, in the sense he's saying, whatever you're going to utter now, any katha, any information that you're going to say any information that you're going to say is going to be my lifeline. Are we really feeling like that? When we hear anything about Bhagavan, Krishna Katha, Krishna Nama, when we are hearing Krishna Katha, when we are hearing Krishna Nama, when we are uttering Krishna Nama, am I really feeling that this is my lifeline? This is my oxygen. And this is here to keep me alive. Am I really feeling like that? That's something to keep in mind. All these things that we are learning from the Shuddha Bhaktas, Parikshit Maharaj, is to know how to practice bhakti, to know how to hear. And what do I do after hearing? So this is why Bhagavatam is so potent, hearing from this pure devotees. Yeah, this is all meant for inspiration, to learn from the Shuddha Bhaktas, and not to be discouraged. This is to learn one baby step at a time, but at least we are learning what to do. Right? So we want to hear like that. When we hear Krishna Katha, when we utter Harinama, we want to remember that it is our lifeline to keep us going. Okay, now going to the next chapter to answer these questions. Sukadeva Goswami is going to answer the first question. That's going to take us to the 9th chapter. So that's. Are you able to see? I think so. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So we have this question to write. Please ask yourself, why this material body when we are all spiritual beings? The answer is, this is a simple one-liner. Please see what you feel when you hear this answer. Sukadeva Goswami just says, oh, actually, it's just like a dream. This body is an illusion. It's just like a dream. And he says, in a dream, say when somebody sleeps in the dream, if they see that their head is cut off, then in the dream, they are panicking and they are sweating, before that happened, when the head is being cut off, and they are fearful. But actually, in actuality, that is not happening. It is just a dream. So when a person wakes up, then he sees that the head is already there. Head is there. It's not cut off, and there's no perspiration, no fear. So in actuality, this material body is an illusion, like a dream, which is not a reality, which is not an absolute reality. That's the answer Sukadeva Goswami gives to Parikshit Maharaj. And I was trying to understand this further. Then the second point he says is, and he also suffers with this misconception of aham mameti. Okay, the dream example is there, but with the second point, when we try to understand, the whole problem here is because of this misconception of aham mameti. And what does that mean? How do I try to understand and apply it to myself? Aham mameti. Yeah, this is mine, and it is me. Srila Prabhupada purports are beautiful. Please go over the Srila Prabhupada purports here also for the whole thing, but especially for this chapter. So as I was trying to understand here, the problem here is aham mameti, as Srimad Bhagavatam is saying. See, for example, Srila Prabhupada explained in the purport. The problem is the enjoying tendency that one has and is attaching that enjoying tendency to the body. So attachment to the body is the problem. In other words, I have this body and I'm so much involved with this body. Anything happening to this body will really disturb me, and anything happening to anything relevant or related to this material body can be very disturbing to me, because I am so attached to this body and everything related to this body. So the problem here is my attachment to this body. But if we take Srila Prabhupada, when he was on so-called the deathbed, I read it, Srila Prabhupada knew that his body was shutting down, the kidneys were failing, and he was in intense pain because of his medical condition that he was in. So his body was shutting down. He knew that, and he was in so much pain. So this was happening with his body. But was it disturbed? Srila Prabhupada was not disturbed at all, not a bit. The translation of Srimad Bhagavatam was going on. It was going on as if nothing is happening to this body. So such a detachment. So Srila Prabhupada also had material body, right? The body made of the material elements, but he had no attachment to the body. He was detached. He thought that this machine was shutting down and the pain was also there severely, but he was so much absorbed in Krishna. And for him, everything is Krishnized. The body is also Krishna, a machine for Krishna, and it runs as long as it can run, and it will shut down when it has to shut down. But he was so much fixed in the loving service to the Lordship. So he was fixed in his identity as a loving servant to the Lord, not in the identity of this is my body. So that is the problem. He didn't have aham mameti. All he had was just Krishna and Krishna. So he was not being the enjoyer of the body or sufferer of the body. No, he was, for him, Krishna is the enjoyer, Krishna is the controller, and Krishna is the proprietor for everything that belongs, including his body. So Srila Prabhupada was untouched, undisturbed, even though this thing was happening to the body. So the problem here is aham mameti. How much am I attached to this body? So this is what Srimad Bhagavatam says. That's how we suffer with aham mameti. And beautifully, immediately says, but by bhakti, he becomes free of the misconceptions, as we just discussed about Srila Prabhupada. By that Shuddha Bhakti that was pervading in the Mahajana, Srila Prabhupada, he was free of all these misconceptions. Everything belonged to Krishna, is meant for service of Krishna. And he was totally, very firmly established in his relationship and service to Krishna. So bhakti has that potency. So the problem is aham mameti, and solution is practice of bhakti. So it's not the problem of having a material body, but it's a problem of aham only. And the solution is bhakti. That's the answer to the first question. And then
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, the question was that why the jiva gets the material body, right, or something else. I just didn't
Right.
exact. So what's the answer? Why we get the material body?
Yeah, Prabhu. Shall we save all these questions till later, Prabhu, so the flow can go on? Can we address
Yes.
this at the end? Yeah?
Yes, Mataji. Sure. Sorry for the.
That's okay, Prabhu.
Yeah, attending first time. Sorry, did
Totally
not know the
It's
rules.
okay, Prabhu. It's okay. Warm welcome to you, and yes, we'll take the questions at the end, Prabhu. Thank you, though. Yeah. So that's about the material body, and we'll come to the question at the end. And regarding the second question of this Purusha avatars, Kshirodaksai Vishnu, can you please tell me about Karnodaksai Vishnu, Kshirodaksai Vishnu, Garbhodaksai Vishnu? So to the set of questions, now the answer is how Garbhodaksai Vishnu entered into the material, into the Brahmanda. So this answer of how the creation has happened will answer the second set of questions. And that's why now the narration is going on. So until now, we have heard in the 5th chapter that Karna Srishti happens, and then Karya Srishti. And at the end, we have heard that Virat Rupa appears in the Brahmanda when Garbhodaksai Vishnu enters. Until there, we have heard, right? Now the continuation is happening. So, when Garbhodaksai Vishnu enters into the Brahmanda, yes, Virat Rupa is an imaginary form. Okay. Virat Rupa also forms in the Brahmanda, and the whole Brahmanda is actually empty. So, from the transcendental perspiration of Garbhodaksai Vishnu, at least the 1/3 of Brahmanda is filled with Garbha Udaka. That's the sweat, transcendental sweat of the Lord. On that ocean, he is lying down. That's why Garbhodaksai Vishnu. Okay? And from his navel comes Brahmaji. Okay? So when Brahma came from the navel of Garbhodaksai Vishnu, everything is dark. So Brahma opens his eyes and he does not know where is the lotus that is sitting, where that is coming from, the origin of that lotus, he couldn't see. And then he has an intention to create the universe, but he didn't know how to do that. So during that time, he hears words which indicated that he should do tapa, means perform austerities. So Brahmaji, he performs austerity, tapas for 1000 celestial years. After performing that, then he will have the vision of this Mahavaikuntha. Beautiful description is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Please, you can read that there. How that Mahavaikuntha is free of all modes. There is no Rajoguna, no Tamoguna. And it was not Shuddha, it was not Sattva mixed with anything. It was all Shuddha Sattva. There was no duality and there is no effect of time. So that's the spiritual realm and the description of the Vaikuntavasis. How beautiful they are. There are male and female devotees there, but their absorption in devotion is so much that there is no sense of enjoyment. So they are absorbed in the service of the Lord, and they do not have any touch of sense gratification. Okay, that's one thing. And an example was also given. When the fragrance from the flowers was coming while they were traveling in the Vaikuntha Vimanas, they were not happy about the fragrance because it was disturbing them from hearing the Harikatha. So in other words, they don't have the tendency to enjoy something. Anything that stops them from the absorption of Hari, they do not want it. So they're all filled with the desire and absorption to the service to Lord Hari. So that's about the Vaikuntha Vasis and the description about the Vaikuntha Vimanas and how Lakshmi Devi was serving the lotus feet of Narayana. While serving, how wonderfully she's glorifying the activities of Lord Narayana and the beauty of Lord Narayana there. It says, Srimad Bhagavatam says, it's captivating, charming. The Lord's beauty was captivating and charming. And the description about the beautiful jewels that the Lord wore and his Pitambara. So beautiful description of the Lord is given there. And so this is the vision Brahma had. And after having that vision, then Lord Narayana appeared before him. Then Brahma, with the vision he had tears from his eyes. And then the heart was overflowing with joy. And he bowed down to Lord Narayana. And then Lord Narayana looked at Brahma. He looked at Brahma and he was very pleased. He was thinking, yes, he is the right person to create, to do the secondary creation in the universe. And he says, Lord Narayana says, I'm very much satisfied by your penance. Actually, I was the one who indicated you to do tapa when you didn't know what you had to do and how to create. Right? And he says, and you know that having this darshan is the highest perfection, right? And since you have done the austerity, undergone the penance exactly as I have mentioned, I am very much pleased with you. And so he says that, and after that, and then the Lord says, okay, now ask for a benediction. Now that you have tapas, you have done tapas and you have pleased me, your subordinates, submissiveness, that was very pleasing. If you read the translations and the purports, it will be very clear that Lord Narayana was so pleased because Brahmaji has done tapas exactly as indicated, as instructed. And that's why Lord Narayana was thinking, yes, he is the right person to create, to do the secondary creation according to my wishes. So that subordination and submission of Brahma has won the heart of Lord Narayana. Okay, then he says, okay, please go ahead, ask for a benediction. And during that time, Lord Narayana, after he gave the darshan of the Mahavaikuntha, as he was talking, he gives a handshake to Brahmaji. And then he says, okay, now go ahead, ask for the benediction. Okay. So that's what happened to Brahmaji after the tapas. Here, is this relevant to us at all? Does anything like this happen to us? I think from the first question, our lesson was more of aham mameti is the entanglement or attachment to the body, identification with the body is the problem. But Srila Prabhupada did not have that problem. As we practice bhakti and Krishna is everything, then we don't look at anything as mine and I, but everything belonging to Krishna. That would be the solution for us. Bhakti, Krishnaizing everything. He is the proprietor. I want him to be the proprietor. He is actually, but giving the proprietorship back to the real person, controllership, and the supreme enjoyer, everything back to Krishna. By Krishnaizing that, then that aham mameti will go away. That's our life lesson from the first one. From the second one, with whatever has happened to Brahma, his tapas, what is there for us? Any life lesson, any take home, anything relevant to us? Brahma, he has to do this tapas every day, his morning. After the partial devastation, he wakes up, he doesn't know how to create. So again, Lord Narayana has to give him Matta Smriti Jnanam Apohanamcha. He is the source of everything. So he has to give the Smriti. So he has to give the remembrance and then blessing so he can start his secondary creation again at the beginning of that day. So this is happening to Brahma every morning. Is something happening to us like that every morning? Every morning we get up. And as we get up, we'll be like, it takes a little time, right? Our japa in the morning is our tapas. So we may be thinking, do we have to really do the japa every day? 2 hours of japa every day? There you go. The secondary creator. Brahmaji, he is doing his tapa every morning. Every morning. And his tapa has resulted him to this vision of Mahavaikuntha and then meeting and blessings from the Lord. So our japa, as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura says, Harinama can take us from Kunta to Vaikuntha, from the material realm to the spiritual realm. That's the potency of the Harinam. When we take complete shelter of the holy name, as guided by the Acharyas and Sri Sikshashtakam, Harinam can take us from the Kunta to Vaikuntha also. So in that way, we have some relevance to the tapa of Brahma. We have our japa, the Harinam that's given to us. Okay. And now coming to Brahma's questions. This is Chaturshloki Bhagavata. So when Lord Narayana said, okay, please go ahead, ask for the benediction. Then Brahmaji says, yes, I will ask for the benediction, but I have 3 questions. I'm going to ask those 3 questions and then benediction. So these are the 3 questions. And the 4th one is a blessing that Brahmaji is asking. This is the Chaturshloki Bhagavata. It is said that the whole of the Bhagavatam is expanded from these 4 slokas. That's why it is called Chaturshloki Bhagavata. Okay? So this is in the 2nd canto, and these are the verses. This Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, the first question from Brahmaji is, I'm seeing you here in the spiritual form, but can you give me some information? If there are any material forms of yours, can you give me some information to my Lord? So can you please tell me about your material forms and spiritual forms? First question. Second question, can you please tell about your energies? And third question is, how do you interact with your energies? These are the 3 questions. Fourth one is, now that I'm going to start my service of secondary creation, I will be working with the material elements. Please bless me that I may not end up with pride and entanglement, bondage with this matter. Would you please bless me? That's the 4th one, is the blessing. Okay. Coming to the answers to the questions. First question is, can you please tell about the spiritual forms and if there are any material forms? For that, Lord Narayana, he's answering it. Aham evasham evagre nan yad yat asat param pashad aham yadetacha yo vasishyate soasmi aham. He's saying, Lord is saying, Aham evasham evagre. In the beginning, before the creation, during the creation, and after the creation, I was existing, I am existing, I will exist in my spiritual form. We have heard about, Garbhodaksai Vishnu, and then how all the universes come from Karnodaksai Vishnu and back to the Karnodaksai Vishnu, right? So in that way, the spiritual forms are present. But when Garbhodaksa Vishnu is entering into the Brahmanda, as we're just discussing, Virat Rupa comes out. That's a material form. But again, please remember, this is an imaginary form. Okay. But so the answer to this question is, yes, in the spiritual form, I was present before the creation, during the creation, sustaining the creation, and after the creation also, as all the material universes merge back into me. And the material form is the Virat Rupa, which is an imaginary form when Garbhodaksa Vishnu enters into the universe. That's the answer for the first question. Second question. Can you tell me about your energies? Yeah, this is external energy and internal energy. How do we understand that? Lord is saying, Rite ardam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyadatmano mayam yadhabaso yadatamaha. Anything without relation with Lord has no reality. So, in other words, there is spiritual energy. If somebody is seeing everything in relation to the Lord, then it means they are in spiritual energy. That is spiritual energy. If anything is seen not related to the Lord, then that is because of the external energy. That is external energy. How do I understand this? In Bhagavad Gita, 10th Canto, 4th and 5th slokas, it says, Bhayam abhayam evacha. Both the bhayam and abhayam, the contrasting points are present there in that sloka. So how can there be fearlessness and fear? How can both be related to the Lord? We can understand there can be fearlessness when we take shelter of the lotus feet of Hari. But how can this fear be relevant to the Lord? The fear is relevant to the Lord when we forget about the Lord. So external energy, this is how, though there is relevance, though there can be fearlessness when we take shelter of the Lord, because of the presence of the external energy, there can be fear because they forget about the lotus feet of the Lord. In this way, fearlessness and fear, both of them are relevant to the Lord in terms of energies. It is because of the internal energy of the Lord, there is fearlessness. It is because of the external energy or Maya energy of the Lord, there is fear. In that way, everything that is present in the creation is directly or indirectly linked with the Lord. Okay? That's the answer for the second question. Third one is, how do you interact with these energies? And answer to that is, this is Yada Mahanti Bhutani Bhuteshu Ucha Bhuteshu Cha Bhuteshu Ucha Avaseshu Anu Pravishtani Apravishtani Tada Teshuna Teshwaham. Here it is, the answer is like, Lord is present in everything and everything is present in the Lord. The example is given like this. When Yashodamai asked Lord Krishna to open, Damodara to open his mouth, she saw all the universes in the Lord, right? So in that way, all the universes are present in the Lord. But in the Virat Rupa, right? In the Virat Rupa, and as Garbhodaksa Vishnu and Karanodaksa Vishnu, the Lord is present within the universe. So everything is present in the Lord and outside the Lord because of his expansions. That's the answer to the third question. Very technical ones, but those are the answers. Okay. And the last shloka is Etavad eva jignasyam tattva jignasunatmanaha anvaya vyatirekabhyam yatshat sarvatra sarvada. These 4 slokas, we have heard the answers to these questions. And the second point that we want to bring it to your attention is, these 4 slokas are actually giving us the Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojana. How? In the first and second slokas, because it is giving us the understanding, the shloka is giving us the understanding of how Lord is present before, after and during the creation. He's giving the sambandha of the Lord with the material creation, right? And in the second thing also, how the energies, spiritual energy and external energy are, they have their relationship with the Lord. Because the relationship is being explained here with the material universe or with the energies of the Lord, this is Sambandha Jnana. Like we are jivas, right? Marginal energies. And we are related to the Lord. External energy is also related to the Lord. Internal energy is also related to the Lord. So this knowledge of how everything is related to the Lord, including us, is Sambandha Jnana. Okay? With this Sambandha Jnana, what are we doing? We want to get Prayojana. Prayojana is Sarvam Krishnamaya, Krishna Priti. Pravishtani apravishtani, tadateshu nateshu aham. Wherever a pure devotee sees, he only sees Krishna. He sees Krishna in everything and everything in Krishna. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena, right? Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati. That is all prema bhakti, Krishna prema. That's the prayojana. That is how this third shloka is relevant to prayojana. But how do we get to this prema bhakti or shuddha bhakti? By practicing sadhana bhakti. So the fourth shloka is about sadhana bhakti. Etavad eva jignasa. When we have this curiosity of and this earnestness, enthusiasm to practice bhakti, tattva jignasunatmanaha, we approach a tattva jignasunatmanaha. Tatvidi pranipatena, pranipatena, pariprashnena sevaya, upadikshanti te jnana, jnanina tattva darshana. So taking shelter of a tattva jnana, when we have enthusiasm to do bhakti, and anvaya vyatirekavayam, directly or indirectly, understanding everything in relevance to the Lord, either directly or indirectly, yashat sarvatra sarvada, at all times, in all places, means practicing sadhana bhakti by taking shelter of a tattvadarshi is the sadhana bhakti. And this is how we get to the prayojana or prema bhakti. This is how all these Sambandha, Videya, Prayojana are explained in these shlokas. Okay. That's a packed one and very philosophical one, but at least the last part is more relishable. And after that, after the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam is explained, then Sukadeva Goswami says how from Lord Narayana, who is Mahavishnu, an expansion of Mahasankrishna, who came from Krishna. So the knowledge came from Krishna through Lord Narayana and then Brahma. And all this discussion is going on between Brahma and Narada Muni, right? So that's how Narada Muni got information from Brahma. And then Narada Muni, how he gave this information to Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva gave that to Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit. This way, the Bhagavata Katha is being conveyed, is being imparted into the hearts of the sincere devotees with all transparency, devotion, submission. And this is the parampara. So it is going to have its own effect when it is coming through the parampara and when we are receiving it like that. So that is about the 9th chapter. The 10th one we have already discussed. 10th one is about the 10 subject matters of Srimad Bhagavatam. This was the very beginning. In the beginning, remember, we have talked about the Srimad Bhagavatam in first in 1 hour. That's about these 10 subject matters. So that's why we are not going through this in detail, but just to bring back your memory. Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10 subject matters of Srimad Bhagavatam. Atra sargo visharkasya sthanam poshanamotaya manvantara ishanukada nirodho muktirashraya. So, Padma Purana also describes how Srimad Bhagavatam is the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, right? And if you remember the shloka, Padau yadiyo, Pradamadvitiyo, Tritiya turiyo, Katitau yaduru, right? So first canto, second canto, third and fourth are about Sarga and Visarga. Creation, primary creation and secondary creation, right? And then fifth canto, Sthanam, is about, now that the creation has been done, all the jivas have to be given some place, some shelter, some place to live in, right? So that's Sthanam, different planetary system. That's described in the fifth canto. And all these jivas now, they are living in the Brahmanda, in different planetary systems. But there are some jivas who, by chance, if they accidentally fall, they need to be rescued, right? Poshanam, even if there is an accidental fall. Lord's mercy is so much that he rescues, like Ajamila and Chitraketu, Dhritarashtra, right? Like how he rescued Dhritarashtra. That we have discussed, all of them. That's all Poshanam. That is compared to the chest of the Lord, Poshanam. Sthanam is the navel of the Lord. And then Manvantara. This also we have discussed. In each day of Brahma, there are about 14 manus. The description of the manus and what happens in the different manvantaras. All that is more described in the 7th. 8th Poshanam is 6th. 7th and 8th is Manvantara. Manvantara and Ishanukada. Okay. Ishanukada is incarnation, the Kada of the Isha, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his devotees. Manvantara. Atra sarko visargascha sthanam poshanam. After Poshanam is Utaya. Utaya is impetus. How these proclivities come, demoniac one by Hiranyakashipu, and divine one by Prahlada Maharaja. That was discussed in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. Then Nirodha Muktir Ashraya. This also we have discussed. Nirodha is the devastation, the 4 kind of destructions. We have discussed that. And then Mukti is liberation. That's more in the 11th canto. Ashraya is in the 10th. That also we have discussed. All these were discussed in the beginning. We're just going through. And this is a little bit about how after Virat Rupa comes into the Karkodaka, in the Brahmanda, what happens after the Virat Rupa comes? After the Virat Rupa, when it wants to see, then the sense organ for seeing is eyes, and the capacity to see is vision. And the demigod of this vision is Suryadeva. All these 3 things, they appear. That way, when the Vishwarupa wants to do different sensory things, how different gross sense organs came, then subtle sense organs came, all the devatas came, all the technical description is given here in the last chapter. Okay. And this is the last one. After the Vishwarupa brings the life in the Brahmanda, after all the sense organs and gross sense organs and subtle sense organs come. Like we have the senses, right? We have eyes, ears, like that. Where is the origin for this? Because Vishwarupa had it. Virat Rupa. Virat Rupa had that. So we have, our origin is the sense organs of the Virat Rupa. So that's the explanation that was given, technical part. And after the Virat Rupa, after all these organs come, everything, then Brahma starts. The Manus come, Devatas come, different animals, human beings, they all come from Brahma. This will be described later in the further chapters coming up. That's all. So that's about the last chapter. So nothing much in the last chapter. It's about 10 subject matters that we have already discussed in the past, and about the Virat Rupa, how different gross and subtle sensory objects come and different devatas come. And those are the sources of our objects and senses too, that we have discussed. And whatever comes from Brahma will be discussed later. This is the end of the second canto. That's all. So we are going to pause here. And to quickly recap what we have said today is in the 8th chapter. Okay. For a second, I had to recall what we had to discuss so far. Yeah. Parikshit Maharaj, those 3 beautiful verses of how Bhagavata Katha should be is heard, and then how it cleanses our emotions by Krishna occupying the emotions and replacing other other objects of our emotions, and then how one does not want to leave the lotus feet of Lord Hari, because this cleansing, when it happens in the heart, it will relieve all the miseries that we have. We have discussed that, and how Parikshit Maharaj heard the whole Bhagavatam in a very surrendered mode, that we have discussed. And in the next chapter, we have discussed about the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. And in the last one, as we just discussed about Virat Rupa, how the gross and subtle sense organs came. And later on, we'll hear more about what came from Brahma. That's all for us today. So we are going to pause here, and maybe we can